make sure you look in the comments and see what Americans are saying about whether this video makes sense or not. Here are the 10 reasons. 1. Americans love their country and want it to be the best country in the world. America is a nation of people who conquered a continent. They love strength. They love winning. Any leader who appeals to that has an automatic advantage. 2. Unlike Europeans, Americans have not accepted managed decline. They don't have net zero here. They believe in producing their own energy and making it as cheap as possible because they know that their prosperity depends on it. 3. Prices for most basic goods in the US have increased rapidly and are sky high. What the official statistics say about inflation and the reality of people's lives are not the same. 4. Unlike you, Americans do not believe in socialism. They believe in meritocracy. They don't care about the super rich being super rich because they know that they live in a country where being super.
Well, this gentleman is making some very interesting points. Yes, Americans are very nationalist. They love their country. And Trump is very good about, saying America first. Whatever I deal with in foreign policy, it'll always be America first. But the fact of the matter is, Trump is a patriot for Trump, unfortunately, and that unfortunately was not seen through. The second point that you make, or one of the points you make, which is very good, is the fact that which makes it hard when you get people like Bernie who want to tax billionaires. Americans say in polls that they're for it. But this gentleman is right in saying that Americans of all Western peoples are the ones who are least bothered by the very, very wealthy, perhaps because they believe that they can become very, very wealthy. And I think in many ways he's hit the pulse on the reasons why Kamala lost. I'd like to hear some more. Oh, yeah.
Which is available to anyone with the talent and drive to make it. They don't resent success, they celebrate it. 5. Americans are the most pro-immigration people in the world. Yes, they're the most pro-immigration people in the world. Americans love an immigrant success story. They want more talented immigrants to come to America. But they refuse to accept people coming here illegally. They believe in...
Yes, it is true that historically America is a nation made up of immigrants. I'd just like to make a small correction to the gentleman. The country most friendly to immigrants is Canada. And the proof of that is that 14% of all Americans were born abroad, and that's 21% here in Canada. So Canada has been fully as friendly to immigrants as America. And it's true that most countries do not want the amount of immigrants that are flooding in at the moment. That I can agree with.
Having a border. 6. Americans are sensitive about racial issues and their country's imperfect history. They believe that those who are disadvantaged by the circumstances of their birth should be given the opportunity to succeed. What they reject, however, is the idea that in order to address the errors of the past, new errors must be made. DEI is racist. They know it and they reject it precisely because they're not racist. 7. Americans are the most philo-Semitic nation on earth. October 7th and the pro-Hamas left's reaction shocked them to their very core because, among other things, they remember what 9/11 was like and they know jihad when they see it. 8. Americans are extremely practical people. They care about what works, not what sounds good. In Europe, we produce great writers and intellectuals. In America, they produce and attract great engineers, businessmen, and investors. Because of this, they care less about Trump's rhetoric than you do and more about his policies than you do.
Start with the last point first. They don't worry about his rhetoric, more about his policies. Trump, when he's looking at situations, foreign or domestic, is an inveterate liar. But when he says he wants to do certain things, he is telling the truth. And one of the greatest mistakes that this gentleman makes in looking at Americans, looking at Trump and saying, well, it's not his rhetoric. It's what he's going to do. Is just wait and see when he carries out his rhetoric, because very, very soon, his MAGA will always be with him. But the part of people who said, well, I don't like his rhetoric, but yeah, generally he's the better for the policy, they are going to sincerely regret it. I don't think DEI is. I don't think DEI is a form of reverse racism, and I do not think I'm not as optimistic at this gentleman idea that Americans want equality, but they don't want favoritism of the present as against the unfavoritism of the past. I think that there is still an undercurrent of racial resentment.
9. Americans are deeply optimistic people. They hate negativity. The woke view of American history as a series of evils for which they must eternally apologize is utterly abhorrent to them. They believe in moving forward together, not endlessly obsessing about the past.
If Americans believe in moving forth together, why is it that they celebrate a candidate who deliberately has gambled his whole political career on rousing differences, but making sure that the people who differ from him are a minority? That's been his whole strategy. So I hardly think that you can say, sir, that this is an apostle of bringing Americans together. The other thing is, you may say that Americans are an optimistic people, but sometimes you have to look at a real situation. Many Americans have a very, very false view of what their country is. And many of them are very ignorant about what is going on in the world. And simple optimism will not cure the ills of either the United States or the rest of the globe.
And 10. America is a country whose founding story is one of resistance to government overreach. They loathe unnecessary restrictions, regulations, and control. They understand that freedom comes with a price, and that price is self-reliance. They pay it gladly. If you enjoy these videos, you should know that they're available on...
Yes, it's very funny. Of course, yes, Americans, it is true, more than other people do not like what they see as too much government. And in fact, sir, I think you hit upon a good point, is that they took polls, and nobody in the world likes taxes. But nobody hates taxes more than the American people. Problem is that it's the corporations that are bleeding America and the world white. And it's very interesting. Americans are always focusing on government because you elect your government. So you have partial control over your government, but you don't have control over the corporations. And it is incredible how much Americans, because of this tradition of so-called anti-government, target the very body that they have some control over, and the very body that even the most conservative of all don't mind getting their Social Security, just to take one example. So no, there is it's typical of America. You focus on one side and you entirely forget the other side. And it doesn't, whatever the Americans say, Bernie, about how they support your tax on billionaires, the fact of the matter is that they worry less about that, which is something that could actually bring in a lot of revenue and help solve a lot of social problems. But no, that doesn't bother them. They are people very much who are very disturbed when they see their neighbor cheating. They're hardworking, which is understandable. But they don't seem to have the foggiest notion of billionaires who pay the lowest in taxes. So I don't buy this simplistic anti-government idea on his part. So I think in sum, it's very interesting what he says, because he touches on a lot of truths. It seems, however, as if he is kind of supportive of all of these things. Maybe he's just explaining, and maybe he doesn't necessarily support, but just trying to explain to the rest of the world, in which case, fine. But the fact of the matter is also that as we have discovered, polls showing that Americans hate inflation more than unemployment, which also says something about Americans, which isn't the pleasantest of things. You know, unemployment will generally hit those who are the weakest. But you know, that doesn't matter because I can't pay my meat bills because we have full employment, which is rubbish. It's very, very bad economics. In the 1960s, we had very low unemployment, uh, and prosperity grew and grew. And we actually took some measures, some government measures, which were largely supported. So this business of this business of anti-government and so on is again, the Americans, to me, many of the Americans are turn a blind eye to the kind of reality that they do not like. So in sum, I think it's very interesting analysis. But if this gentleman is implying or inferring that these are good things, he and I have some very, very big differences and very different analyses of the situation.